Okay, so you could start if you wanted, but then I'll add the nuances.
Sure. So we met in Victoria, where I was working. I had a surf shop.
Pauline and I were going to do something totally different, but after we ran into some of our Calgary friends, or my friends from Calgary, they invited us to this house party on Dallas Road. And it ended up being a huge party. It was filled with people. And so she and I walked in, and I needed ice cubes for whatever I was drinking. And so I went into the kitchen. It was so busy in there. But then I saw him, and I thought, oh, that guy from earlier that I met at the shop. And have you ever seen the movie Big Fish? I use this reference all the time. Ewan McGregor's character sees the person he falls in love with at a carnival. He sees her, and there's all this stuff happening at the circus. And there's popcorn flying in the air, and everything pauses, but she's still moving. So that's sort of what happened when I saw him. I don't know if I even got the ice cubes, and I thought, oh, I need to go and talk to him immediately. And it was as though nothing else was happening. Pretty sure.
And I was in a full conversation.
And I guarantee you, I interrupted whatever the hell
I'm pretty sure you actually pulled me out of it.
And just, and I was like, hey, you from earlier.
Yeah.
And then that was that. Basically, and we started talking. We didn't leave each other's side that night. We went down to a campfire on the beach. He came back to Colleen's, but we're both like not very late night people, so we kind of made out a little bit, but then fell asleep.
I just fell asleep on the floor.
Yeah, like on the floor of her living room. And,
a blanket and a floor.
Yeah, but didn't get to like second base or anything. But then the next night, he Mom, I promise. And then the next night, he asked me out for a date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we went out on a very nice date.
But I was leaving the next day as well.
Oh, right.
Because I didn't live here.
Yeah, that's right. So we went and it was when Little Thai Place just opened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, let's go get Thai and go sit on a beach. And so that's what we did. And we went down to Cadborough Bay and walked all the way down to the beach, down the end. And it was super high tide. And we just sat under a really nice tree and...
Which I have a painting of upstairs. I've made a painting of. So this was kind of before cell phones and stuff. This was in 2015. So when I went on the date with him, I decided to stay at his house. And so I had to call my friend Colleen, but I didn't have her house phone number. So I called another friend of ours, got her number. I was looking through the phone book, wrote her number down in the phone book. So it was in there on a random page. Then called her, said I wasn't coming home, I'd be back at breakfast. And he was going for an early morning surf. So he dropped me off at like 6:30 in the morning or something. And I crawled into bed with Colleen. And I was like, that was the best date ever. And then he knew I was leaving that day. So then instead of going surfing, he ended up driving back to his apartment and thinking, why would I go surfing? I should invite her out for breakfast or something instead. And so he went and found the phone book, found the phone number for Colleen, called her and invited me out for breakfast. And I remember watching his face. We went to the Blue Fox.
Yeah.
And I watched his face and the way that he spoke to the waitress. And I thought, he's a good person. That can make a huge difference when you're, and just he was so kind. And I knew in that moment, okay, this is great. But then, of course, I'm leaving. And so I got back to Calgary and I put together this beautiful care package and pretty much a love letter that I said to him. And then I jokingly said...
What was in the care package?
Well, he didn't have good coffee. I knew that from having slept over at his house.
Right.
Coffee.
And so I explained to him that the best thing that I thought for coffee, if you get good beans and a basic Bodum, if you don't want to buy a nice cappuccino machine or whatever. And so I sent him really nice coffee.
It was a CD.
A CD.
I don't know. CD that you made.
Yeah. What else was in there?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, but he got it, and I jokingly in that said, oh, I'll see you in a week, as though I did live there. And then I could, because I worked for a developer. I was able to, you could leave after work on Friday, fly for the weekend, and then be back for work on Monday morning.
And you could get really good WestJet sales back then.
It wasn't that expensive,
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so I came for a week. So we had this like Fast and Furious romance through June and July. Then... Andrew had only broken up with someone earlier that spring, and she was about to go to law school, and they had planned a trip to go to Indonesia together. And neither of them had canceled their flights, even though they'd broken up. And Andrew felt responsible to continue to travel with her because it's a kind of a dangerous place to go at the time or whatever. So he went on that trip with her, which I just had to be cool about because it was, I don't know. I just said, okay. I trusted him to go. And then Andrew came back from the trip and broke up with me. So that was the month of August, basically. So my experience of that was truly, you know, that expression, to love someone is to let them go.
Right.
I was heartbroken, but on the telephone conversation that we had, I just said, okay, well, you go do what you need to do. And hung up.
Yeah.
Cried.
Right.
Probably gained at least 15 pounds.
Ate a lot of ice cream.
But then we didn't talk. Like I was just, and you know, and I just said, okay, well, if I'm not for him, then I want him to go live his life.
Yeah.
And
well, and the reason that it happened, it wasn't, I didn't get back together with my ex-girlfriend or anything. Like, the reason was that relationship ended, and part of it was a long distance relationship. And so I was just getting out of this long distance relationship knowing that was part of it that I just didn't like. Yeah. And then I saw Nancy and I'm like, this is the girl I want to be with forever, but it's long distance.
I didn't live there. Yeah.
And I was just like, had just graduated university right then. And I was pretty entrenched with my business. You were entrenched with your career in Calgary.
And I fell so in love and so quickly over the time before he went on the trip to Indonesia. But the most ironic thing is that he was the only person who'd ever broken up with me, and now we're married.
Now we're married.
And I mean, in some ways, I think I like that. Like I liked that he made his own decisions, and even though it you know hurt me for a time, I need someone who's like their own person and complete and whole in themselves in order to, you know, I think that's the basis of any good relationship, that both people are comfortable with themselves. And, you know, he it wasn't the right time for him, and I was okay with that, and I cared about him enough that it was fine.
You said, okay, fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and didn't send any psycho missives or like mean-spirited things. It was just, you know, I just wallowed in my car. I'd cry in my car usually, or at yoga, which is awkward because the tears just like stream straight down the side.
And your yoga teacher's going, what's going on?
Yeah. But it all worked out in the end.
You did?
Yeah. Well,
6 months.
No. You called me on New Year's.
That's 6 months.
Well, no, September was when he broke up with me.
Yes,
so it was a quarter.
And
by that time,
on New Year's Eve.
Well, and by that time I had a new, really awesome job, and so he called me. I think you called me around November 1st, saying, just checking in. Obviously, he'd been thinking about me, and I'd been thinking about him a lot, but I did not make that obvious on the phone conversation. I just said, yeah, I'm fine. I have this great new job, and then, you know, was cautious, obviously. And then I was laid up at my dad's house. I'd broken my collarbone on Boxing Day, and so I was hanging out with my dad and like sleeping in his upright reclining chair thing, and he calls me drunk from Whistler, I think, at like 3 a.m. on New Year's. And then, you know, obviously it was like amorous over the phone call, but I was kind of like, whatever, this guy broke my heart. But I also kind of got that like butterfly feeling about him calling me.
But you were cool. Oh, she was so cool.
Did this predate call waiting?
And that's when I was like, and this girl has to be my wife.
But no, and then you probably thought the ship had sailed because I was so chill. Anyways, and it was probably quite nice that I didn't flip out on him when he broke up with me too, right? Because that showed that I had an even temper probably or whatever. So anyway, so then he ended up coming out for business in January, February, and we saw each other then. And then part of the reason I was cautious, I think, was my heart had been broken, but also like my family thought he was the devil because they thought they saw how sad I was. Yeah. So that was kind of hard to ease back into it. But once we saw each other again that January or February or whatever it was, it just picked up like normal, which, you know, and then I thought, is he gonna break my heart again? But then I didn't really think he would, and so we started then where I'd come back and forth to Victoria, and then we were on a surf trip with some friends in Westport, Washington, and he was driving me back to Vancouver where I was flying home after the weekend, and we kind of started the conversation.
Summer. So that would have been...
Yeah, so this was June. It would have been probably June, like a year from when we'd met, but all this stuff had happened. So, and we kind of
did lots of fun trips.
So many fun things.
Met for fun...
Yeah, it's like you only have honeymoon phase when you're doing long distance.
Yeah.
It's like, we're doing a trip, we're going to Tofino, we're doing this. Anyway, but so So then on the way on that drive, he was dropping me at the ferry or at the airport, and then taking a ferry back to Victoria, and we talked briefly about what it would look like if I moved in with him. And again, I was sort of cautious about doing that. So I said, oh, no, I can't possibly move in with you. You don't have enough closet space. And then he then took the ferry home. I flew home, went into my office the next morning, opened my computer, and the first message that I see is from him. And he had an attachment that was a PDF of a drawing, an architectural drawing that he had done that showed how he could modify his bedroom so that I'd have a closet. And I literally stood up from my desk and quit my job. I went into my boss's office and quit my job.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I called my mother first. I know. I called my mom, and she says, what? Oh, you quit your job? And she said, what do you mean you're going to Victoria? She said, the economy's terrible there, and you know,
that
guy, you're moving in with him? And I was like, I'll talk to you later. So then I called my dad.
No, the waitress part.
Oh yeah, she's like, you'll probably have to work in a restaurant or something, you know, as though that was awful because the economy was so great in Calgary. Anyway, so then I was like, oh, I'll talk to you later. I called my dad, and he says, oh, that's great, princess. And he said, you might as well, if you're moving there for him, you might as well move in with him anyways and find out if it was worth it. And then he says, and even if you need to work as a waitress for a little while, he said the exact opposite. They were ambitious on my behalf for my career, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so then I moved there in July. He came, we partied for a weekend at Stampede.
Right.
And then piled all my stuff into my Volvo, which was pretty much just artwork and clothing.
Right.
And then off we went. And we've been together ever since.
Well, and basically the first day you went job hunting.
Oh yeah, that's
you got
why
the job
I know
with
you.
Dockside.
I had printed off some resumes thinking, I guess everyone's right, I will work in a restaurant. And then I was like, I had some resumes, and then I went into Rebar, and they said, do you have Serving It Right? And I was like, what's that? and then I went to the Dockside Presentation Center, and I was going to pretend that I'd had some inheritance, and I was like actually shopping for condos, but then someone in there, Amber, was so sweet that I said, I'm looking for a job, and then she brought me over to meet Corolla right away, and I got the job in like 2 days. Well, probably that in the kitchen, it was like, okay, I'm focused on this guy. Mm-hmm. And like at that house party or whatnot, warned me about Nan, that she really says what she's thinking and whatever. I loved Nan, and we were very similar people.
Very similar.
Oh
yes.
And she said, oh, it's about time. You kids do everything backwards these days. She's like, you moved in together, then you bought a house, then you had a dog. You know, how ridiculous. And then she said. And she wanted, her biggest thing that she wanted to know was whether or not he'd shave his face for our wedding, because she didn't like the stubble on his face.
And I said, if my wife wants me to, you didn't.
I didn't really care, whatever. I like how that looks. But then I said, oh, Nan, because she was quite traditional. I said, well, we've never kissed. And she said, I would be worried that you have stubble trouble. And I said, oh, no, we've not kissed. We're not married yet. Guarantee she was smooching Grandpa Charles long before they got married, too. So we got married only 3 years after we'd first met. So if you consider that first year a bit of a love / hiatus. Yeah. And then we moved in together and lived together for a while, but we got engaged, I guess, a year before that or something. So I mean,
we moved in together, got a dog right away.
Yeah, this dog, the one who's barking and clicking around in the background with his nails. So we're 11 this year, and then this past summer we threw a party at the same venue that we got married, because it was our 10-year anniversary.
Okay, nice.
And that was so fun because. Obviously the dynamic is totally different with our friend group and everything. Like at our wedding, we had one couple that had a brand new baby.
Right.
And at this 10-year anniversary, the place was overrun with kids partying as hard as we did when we got married.
Yeah.
Right.
And having such a good time.
Yeah, it was cool. I think we really value each other's opinions on things and naturally make decisions together. We've always shared the same ideas about how money works, and we've always just really shared stuff. I think that's...
I guess what you mean is like our core values are the same.
Core values.
But actually we differ in opinion all the time. We can be like fairly hostile in our opinions.
Yeah, we're both
but we don't ever take it that seriously, or like, I don't know. But we... Even if we fundamentally disagree about something, and usually it's a simple thing and not a core thing, we respect each other enough to say, okay, well, that's your opinion over there, and this is mine over here, and we can still live together.
Yeah, it doesn't have to turn into anything bigger than a difference of opinion about whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I would say that I remember quoting to both of my parents when I left, that one of my favorite quotes, which is, the heart has reasons that reason knows nothing of. And I'm always fascinated about intuition, why it would have been that he had that idea when we first encountered each other, or why I was so drawn to talking to him that moment at that house party. But I do believe that your heart knows things often well before you do or considered about it.
Absolutely.
And I think, Pascal is who said that. But, also that's sort of how he and I both make decisions about things as well, and which some people would look at and think that's impulsive. Well, wow, you guys had this 2-month romance and then reconnected and you're suddenly moving in together, whatever. But when you know what's right, you just know what's right. And that's your heart is telling you what to do.
I feel like we knew each other really well from like the get-go. It felt like I just knew you when we met. So I knew you'd want a closet. I knew you. I don't know. That's what I think. We just know each other well.
Yeah.
Naturally.
I just liked that you had the energy to do that. That at the time he was starting his business.
It turned out really well too.
Yeah, the closet was nice, but it was funny because he was just starting out his business, and then he's like, okay, I'll be needing a saw. And I was like, do you need me to buy you a saw in order to make it?
Is that a business expense? Or
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think he found me highly annoying working together because... I would come in and do the sort of wifely things into his office, like, have you eaten? Do you want a sandwich? And he would find that annoying. But that's another thing that I would say that is something that we do really well. When it comes to going on a trip or something, we want to be together, we want to be with the family, but we do lots of stuff apart. And one of the things that Andrew was so passionate about when I met him is surfing. And I know I have the athletic ability to surf, but I've never really tried that much because I recognize, but I think part of it is that I recognize that that's his solace. He likes to go out and be in the water. So if you can imagine if like I come paddling up with my too loud voice saying, hey, what are we having for dinner tonight? And then that kind of ruins his tranquility moment. And, although he jokes with me that I need to have a more wholesome hobby than drinking wine with my friends.
But socializing is one of your favorite things to do. So it's not surprising at all that that's how you like to relax.